What's good, y'all? I just did a video talking about this, and we're going to look at the actual report. GAYming, the state of LGBTQ inclusion in video games. Now, GLAAD does this all the time. They do it with the film industry. They do these detailed reports about what's more or less gay, and it's never enough. They for sure go through this here. Now, look at this table of contents. Outside of the introductions and all that, we're going to look at some of this and what it is that they try to say to justify these positions. 1 in 5 active gamers are LGBTQ is the numbers that they are referencing. We talked a little bit about that in the previous video. They're going to make the case for LGBTQ inclusion in games. Gaming provides a social outlet, but harassment concerns. You also have things like this one where it says LGBTQ video game content is lacking, which again says that it is not enough. So looking through some of these, again, you got the intros and all that, and they're saying the research with Nielsen this year found that 17%, nearly 1 in 5, active gamers are LGBTQ. And yet in our analysis of currently available console games, we found that games with LGBTQ characters or storylines account for less than 2% of all games. We are nearly invisible in game representations, despite being a significant percentage of gamers. So their logic is this. According to that data, I don't necessarily believe this. I want to make myself clear there. They believe 17% of people that are playing video games are gay. Now, see, this taps you into the psyche of this whole representation nonsense, right? And that they define you solely by whatever that makeup is, whether you're gay, whether you're a black or whatever it may be. They limit you to that, and then they say in order for you to be represented, which is something that they believe must be, you got to strive for that, right? You got to strive for this representation thing. But in order for you to get that feeling of representation, which they look at as a good, it has to be replicated. It has to be somehow in the game, in this sense, when they're talking about the storylines or these LGBTQ characters. Now, keep in mind, I don't think that the average gamer even considers that, because it's like, is the game solid? Is it fun? Is it like experience? I think people gravitate more towards certain genres and whatnot. But I don't know if people that actually play games, that are actual gamers, you know, this is their go-to hobby or one of their go-to hobbies. I don't think they are focusing so much on sexuality of these characters. And generally when it is in there, because, well, let's backtrack just a little bit. This stuff does and has recently been put in these games, and they've been so blatant. It's dry, it's boring, it's so front-facing, and it's because it's only put there to check a box in the first place. So it is going to make for a mundane sort of experience, and then, of course, they're beating you over the head with it. It comes off as cheesy. It comes off as very corny. It's not organic, and that's the problem. You run into that trap when you care more about checking boxes than you do making a solid video game. Now, GLAAD's finding, as it says, it's a growth of 10% of active gamers being LGBTQ from that study in 2020. So apparently, in 3-4 years, the growth has gone up significantly. And now you're talking 17%. The scale of LGBTQ gamers, in terms of the growth, is significant. This is what it says. Notably, the percentage of LGBTQ gamers is even higher among younger age groups, 23 to 28%. And they do have that right here. So they're saying that they skew younger. That's a problem. And this is the LGBTQ active gamers list, I guess. And this is pretty significant when you look at 13 to 17-year-old gamers. That speaks to a more cultural problem that maybe we save that for another video, because that's an issue right there. And it says LGBTQ gamers spend similar amounts of money on gaming. I guess in terms of non-LGBTQ, whatever. So this is my thing with this. You wonder why the Sweet Baby Inks of the world exist. People can call it a grift, right? I like to think of it more of a hustle, which, I mean, maybe it just means the same thing to you. What I mean by this is it's a phantom problem that isn't one at all. However, there are individuals or groups of individuals that have been able to figure out there's a way to make money from this. In fact, companies will pay you crazy amounts of money to have you come ruin their projects, ruin their companies, build these programs out that focus on inclusion and diversity and representation and all this good stuff. So you wonder why the Sweet Baby Inks of the world exist. It's because, well, the Glads of the world exist. And they look at it like this and they say, well, this is a problem, right? There needs to be, it's only 2% of games have this type of content, yet 17%, and I guess they're trying to make it seem like there's some disparity there, right? And therefore, it must be more closer, it needs to be more closer to the representation of these supposed LGBT gamers, which is 17% of them, which again, I don't necessarily believe, but that would be a significant amount of games having either gay folk in it or gay storylines, which again, if that's what we're focusing on, I don't know if that makes for good content at all. But because people look at everything, the whole entire world through the lens of disparity, right? Everything needs to line up equally or neatly. And if it doesn't, then there has to be something going on. Maybe there's discrimination or something negative that they feel like is there, and it needs to be corrected. Sweet Baby Inks of the world. These DEI programs that are built, they're there to address the disparity. And then you get, again, mundane experiences because above all else, they feel like they must check the box or the boxes. Everything else be damned. Gameplay, all that stuff, who cares? We'll address that, but at some point, we'll get there, maybe. But we got to address this gay stuff. Look, I'm not a pessimist. I'm white pilled all day long. And I do believe that if we're going to get on the other side of it, it's going to come by way of independence that don't follow by these mega corporate rules. Because the mega corporate entities, they're ruined. They're done. That's just bottom line. They have been long compromised. They are committed to it, even in failure. And I think that tells you a lot, is how committed that they are. When you see all these people get promoted in failure, that's your problem. That tells you that, well, they're not ending this thing anytime soon. They will absorb these losses. So if gaming is the industry, I think this is why it's so attractive to these activists, is because it's the industry. There's more money being spent on it than in Hollywood and movies and all that. Gaming is the industry, okay? So they're going to hyper-emphasize it. They're going to hyper-focus on it. And that's just what it's going to be. So don't expect the AAA experience to get any better. They don't have the setup to do that. They've long been infiltrated and long been compromised, and Glad's going to keep holding these clowns' feet to the fire, and they're going to think they're doing something as they push these narratives in your games, even though you think, I mean, it's like, damn, you can't get away from it, and Glad saying it's not enough. Imagine that. Imagine that. Thanks for watching. Be sure to head over to Rippaverse.com to check out our comic book company. We have books, plenty of merchandise, and even some glorious animations from Rippaverse Studios. Next up, possibly our most anticipated book thus far, Yaira.